Thank you to our panelists. Next, we have a sponsor spotlight. So we are going to hear from Beauceron Security. David Shipley is going to take the stage to talk about strategies to create effective cybersecurity campaigns. Thank you, Beauceron Security, for your support.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today and to represent the pack at Beauceron. A quick thing I always like to say is, why did we name a cybersecurity company and a technology after a sheepdog from northern France, which is what a Beauceron is? Because we help turn people from the passive victim of cybercrime into the active defenders. We're all about changing culture, and it was really fascinating to hear the panel, particularly the last remarks, and what's being discussed. So when we get into the presentation here, although it's not advancing, so let's see, try the green button one more time. I guess not. There we go. You're not going to get a sales pitch from me. It's a sponsored session, but I want to talk to you about why focusing on humans is important, some lessons we can actually apply and learn from the aviation industry. I want to talk about why security awareness is not enough. We've never been more aware about cybersecurity as a society than ever before. We hear the news every week. Some of you may recognize my voice because I'm on Global News Radio, television, or CTV National News weekly, talking about the story of the day. We need to actually change behaviors. And we need a better framework for success. And we're going to talk about that. And the framework that we're going to talk about is built on the lessons we've learned deploying the technology now to more than 100 organizations, including some of the biggest financial institutions in Canada, governments, energy utilities, and higher education, which is where I come from. I come from the University of New Brunswick, and I ran the security program. Click again. I love talking about this fantastic survey that the Royal Bank of Canada did in 2018, and it's really interesting for the insights it shows us, because sometimes we can all be a little too confident. And what this survey really highlighted was 77% of Canadians said, yeah, we know what cybersecurity is. 61% of them didn't know what the term phishing actually meant, and only 16% could actually correctly identify the majority of terms. We don't know what cybersecurity actually means. We don't talk the same language. We're not consistent about that. We don't make cybersecurity relevant and contextual enough. All cybersecurity incidents can be traced back to people, process, and culture. There is not a single incident you can name, I believe, firmly, that doesn't have as its root somewheres on the human side. In fact, the word itself, cyber, was a direct acknowledgement of the intimate relationship between people, technology, and control. And as I'm going to talk about shortly, when we talk about the aviation industry and lessons from safety, you can see the dramatic difference that happens when you focus on the humans and the technology. And I won't say that you don't need all of the security controls that you have been talking about in various meetings, firewalls, identity and access management, the list goes on. It's not about one or the other, but it is about approaching these things in balance. We spend 99 cents of every security dollar on technology. We spend a penny on people. So aviation safety. So in the Second World War, what's really interesting, of course, when we think about aviation safety and casualties, of course, we're thinking active combat. But 2/3 of all pilots killed in World War II were outside of the context of combat. They were in just operating the planes, flying, training. And while dangerous, there were some pretty significant safety issues with the technology. In 1963, the global aviation industry was looking at 5 incidents per million. And by 87, let's just go back one for a quick second. By 2013, it was down to 0.35 incidents per million. Wouldn't you love to be in the organization that reduced your risk that much? 93% plus reduction in risk. That'd be fantastic. But how did they do it? Well, you can see here the ramp and reduction of incidents per million. And we made some marks. In the period between the 1940s to 1987, there were significant, massive technological improvements. And then there's a plateau heading out of that period into the late 80s, and things actually take a little bit of a turn for the worse. And then the aviation industry begins a concerted, focused effort on the human factors. And that's everything from as simply making sure things are tagged, so when crews are preparing planes, they can see what's been done, they understand what's going on, better processes, to better education in the cockpit, looking at pilot distraction and how the crews interact together, but they focus on the people and look at the dramatic reduction in risk. So yes, they make huge strides on the technology side, but the greatest strides come from focusing on humans. When we talk about cybersecurity awareness, I'm afraid that too much of the conversation is about, did we get the compliance training out? Did everyone get the 30-minute module? Check. Whether they did the quiz or not. Did we meet whatever certification requirement, and we can report on that? And certification requirements are important. But the ultimate aim of cybersecurity awareness is the same as what the aviation human factors was. We want to enable people to make better decisions. And using the same generic content over and over again is not going to help people make better decisions. So there are 3 principles if you want to run a modern cybersecurity awareness practice in an organization. And I can tell you these principles apply whether you're trying to educate 100 or 100,000. The 3 principles are this. It has to be human-centric. It has to be audience-focused. It has to be like modern marketing. It has to be relevant, contextual. It has to matter. You need to actually measure, and you need to measure the right things. And I will say this, click rates on fishes are cool. They're an easy reporting metric, but they're not the best metric. Because I can tell you right now, I can game it so that I can have a horrible click rate. I can send an HR email from your organization that looks like your process, maybe it's your employee survey, and I'll jack that click rate right up. Or I can send a really easy phishing campaign and no one's going to click on it. Click rates are not the best metric, but there are metrics and there are ways of measuring the return. And finally, automation. And I think there was a speaker up who was talking about how small their team was to do cybersecurity awareness. We've worked with organizations of all sizes. Nobody has all the staff members, all the experience they need. And automation is not designed to displace or replace the human need to interact with humans, but it's to free up the time so that people can do the town halls, build the champion networks, do the things that humans do best. Let's talk about the human factors. What's in it for me? And there are 3 things we need to talk about. We need to make it personal. We need to make the skills and knowledge we learn transferable, and we need to make the experience rewarding. Let's start with personal. As much as you can, how do we make the education we're providing contextual to my job inside the organization? Whether I'm actually doing the infrastructure work at an energy utility and I need to know that I have access now to more and more sophisticated things that are plugged in, or I'm in the finance team and I process invoices and wire transfers, or I'm on the front line in retail and I deal with credit card information. What is the information about security that's most relevant to me, to my role? Transferable. I'm really proud to say that we work with NB Power, and they've done a fantastic job teaching us and helping us learn about their needs. And one of the lessons that Jamie taught us was how important it was for employees at NB Power to be able to share lessons they were learning about cybersecurity at home. So it's not just about securing what's in it for work and here's how you need to do to keep us safe. How can we educate you to keep yourself and your family safe? And I will say this, as your perimeters and your security tooling improves inside the organization, as Internet of Smart Things proliferates in the home, if I'm going to go after a big company, I'm going to go after your users in their home and see how I can get in from there. So protecting and security is not a 9-to-5 job. It's a way of life. It is a culture. So how do we create content that's specific, that it also addresses these issues? Rewarding. It's really interesting. We run these phishing simulations, and we have this capability to do reporting. And if you report the phish, you get a simple thank you and an acknowledgement. And in our system, we use a scoring system to show people how they're doing in cybersecurity, whether they have a good risk score or a poor risk score. And the amount of people that love just being told thank you is huge. And the amount of people that love to compete against each other for the best score possible is amazing. I've seen it in a telco company in Canada, a mid-sized firm. People were challenging the CEO to say, I've got a better score. It's really interesting, and it gets that conversation about security isn't just IT's responsibility, it's everybody in the company. There's lots of ways to do this. One really forward-looking company that I learned about in the UK, they have a clean desk policy. Now, they have a team competition, and they have their departments divided up like houses, from the Harry Potter or from the British schooling system, and they have a giant championship medal, and they celebrate with a party who had the cleanest workspace, who adhered to it. They have so much fun with it. They made it rewarding. I think I skipped a slide, so I just want to double check that, but this is not the best. There we go. What's in it? The one last thing I would say about the what's in it for me is the most powerful force that we can tap into. And I really can't reinforce that enough. When we're talking to organizations, people don't jump into a security awareness platform because they're like, oh man, I'm super excited about learning more stuff on the job that's on top of all my other day jobs. But what's in it for me is powerful. Understand your audience. Make the connection between awareness and impact. And what's interesting, there have been some really interesting discussion papers at the national level about why cybersecurity awareness campaigns fail. And it was interesting because they looked at all the content that had been produced, all the audiences, et cetera, and they determined, number one, cybersecurity awareness wasn't delivering ROI, not because the content was bad. The content was great. Number two, it wasn't because the people were stupid. They're very smart. And listen, I often hear at technology-focused cybersecurity events, someone will probably mutter it. Maybe they'll say it, oh God, users are stupid. We can't teach them not to click on things. We need the latest AI, machine learning powered, yada, yada, yada. Listen, if your organization truly is populated with stupid people, cybersecurity is not your number one concern. Thank you. Your organizations are populated with smart, motivated, talented people, which, by the way, they are your greatest advantage. So how do we make the connection between awareness and impact was something that came out of this study, and they said people don't see that they matter. They need to have a lever, a perception that their actions have a connection. That's why we developed a score that they can see and influence. They can actually change by doing the good things, getting their survey and their training and reporting their phishes. Their score improves. They can see the connection now, and they can see their connection to the organization. Now, the next thing, what do we do about cybersecurity in our organization? The most effective organizations that use a cybersecurity awareness platform do not use the generic content after year one. Generic canned content, and I don't care if it's a slick video or a game or even just a slideshow, it'll get you through year one, but it won't get you to year two, which is people wanting to know, what do we care about? What are the threats specific to our industry, our business? What are we dealt with? This is your time to tell the risk story in your organizations, and you need better tools and better content and get beyond compliance to do that. And finally, if we want to get people to care about cybersecurity, we do have to have the conversation about what is the business impact to me, my department, and my organization. And I'll share a painful story from the University of New Brunswick. In 2013, 3 members of the athletic department fell victim to a phishing campaign. They gave up their credentials. That group, which was based out of the Philippines, waited until 2 o'clock in the morning, sat on the creds, logged into our email infrastructure when we were all asleep because we didn't have 24-hour monitoring, and used those creds, because we didn't have any limiting, there was no CASL at the time, to send out 1 million spam messages around the world in a couple of hours. That landed us on some very unfortunate block lists like Sorbs, Google's block list, Hotmails. And imagine the commotion at the University of New Brunswick when we couldn't email the government of New Brunswick. We couldn't email prospective students using Hotmail or Google at application time. Mass chaos, cats and dogs. It was a disaster. We talked about that story in our cybersecurity awareness effort so people could see the connection between that. And when we had to make policy and process changes, we didn't waste that crisis, and we educated our leaders with that knowledge. Minimize cognitive burdens. Make it simple, make it fun. Make it easy to do the right thing. One of the things that we worked on really powerfully was a better reporting mechanism in Microsoft Outlook for people to report their phishes. And right within that mechanism, it will tell them if it was a simulation right then and there. It'll congratulate them. It'll give them easy ways of helping us understand why they reported a phish and understanding that data. We made it fast and easy. And we made it fast and easy for the admins to actually get that out there by using Microsoft's add-ins, which, by the way, if you don't have a phishing reporting button, here's a tip. You can actually build your own with Microsoft's add-ins. Really easy. So you should have one. Have a phishing reporting process. Please don't just tell your users to delete your phishes. I'll tell you why. We caught 3 highly targeted attacks when I was at UNB against specific individuals because they knew how to report them, and we would not have seen them. Your people are still your best sensor. Artificial intelligence is no match for the real thing. Harness your people. Simplify the processes to do the right thing. And focus on the key threats. Don't bombard people with every single security fear story or they will mentally check out. You know, if your greatest concern is having a credit card breach because that could either remove your ability to process transactions or significantly jack up your costs, prioritize that as your key theme this year. If you're rolling out multi-factor authentication and you want to help people understand that, make that the priority, but focus on the key things. When we talk about automation, and we talk about humans doing human things, there is no substitute for intimate conversations, in-person conferences, one-on-one chats. It's amazing. It's awesome. The amount of behavior change you can do when you get passionate people in a room and you speak at a human level is huge. But you can't do that if you're just doing manually scheduling phishing campaigns, downloading CSV reports, manually compiling all this stuff, trying to report this back to managers, executives, etc. You didn't have the time. I didn't. 70% of my time was tied up in doing routine things that were not adding value to the organization. I wanted to free my time up to have a bigger impact. And that enabled me to focus on relationships. And all of a sudden, it wasn't just what the IT department wanted to talk about in security. I was able to form relationships with finance, with student services, with others. And I've seen this play out in all kinds of other businesses where they could understand the business context and tailor content and market the campaigns. I can't say the particular bank that we have the privilege of working with, but we've learned so much from how amazing they are at marketing their campaigns. They do everything from the traditional poster stuff you see to an amazing event in person and streamed by webinar to also, they just created this amazing little triage thing they got from hospitals and nurses. It's a little flip chart. It says what to do with phishing, what to do if you see someone in an area you shouldn't see before, and it can sit on a frontline employee's desk, and they can quickly flip it open and see, and then they can send people back to the learning platform that we work with them on to actually learn more. So market your campaigns. There's a great book I just started into on the tyranny of metrics, and what can I tell you is that when I initially started getting involved in cybersecurity awareness, when I came out of sort of very obsessed of this technological side of things, I was a QRadar nerd, I loved all my metrics, I loved all the data points I had, and I tried to replicate the same thing on the awareness side, and I got obsessed with click rate. And we made some good strides. We reduced our click rate from 34% to less than 5%. We had a good mix of complexities on the campaigns, et cetera. But I didn't focus enough on a better indicator. A better indicator than a click rate for phishing campaign is your reporting rate. And I can tell you that you want to see the relationship. If you have a 10% click rate, it's not great. But if you got a 10% click rate and a 50% reporting rate, that's awesome. You got half of the people who received that simulation knew it was a phish, and they knew it was the right thing to do to report it. That's the right kind of metric. But also think about aggregates over specifics. And aggregates like this, a security score, like what we've done, has been really powerful because it gives people a mix of tools and levers and things they can do to improve that's not just one action. So in our platform, people can earn additional rewards for taking additional learning, for reporting more phishes, for attending a security event. So the security team can recognize that. They give all kinds of different ways, and they aggregate that into a score. And it's more powerful. And iterative feedback loops. I can't tell you, one of the most frustrating things that I had running traditional phishing campaigns was we'd run the phishing campaign, we would get all the people clicking, they would see the landing page maybe, and about 90% of them panicked and closed it in under 10 seconds. They didn't absorb the education, and regardless of the platform, it doesn't work. We needed to find a way, and we built into Beauceron the ability to actually notify users, say, listen, you fell victim. Depending on the cultural context, different organizations treat it differently. Universities, generally, it goes, hey man, not the worst thing in the world. Be super nice if at some point in the future you could take some additional training to learn how not to do this again, and it's done automatically. Other organizations like banks tend to take a harder line. You must complete the required remedial training within X days. That's cool. It helps them. It fits the culture they're taking. It's great. And one of the best parts about that is that if you can see the action you took did a bad thing, and you can see in an aggregate metric, oh, that didn't go the direction I wanted, and then see that you can make it up by doing remedial training or reporting the phishes, then that gives you that, okay, there's a way that I can make a difference. This is how I improve my score. So I will pause, and I would love to get any questions. I know I had 30 minutes, but a lot of people just talking at people is pretty boring. And it's also right before lunch, so okay, mentally a checkout. I will say this. We're crazy about dogs and dog puns, and after the session, just outside the doors, we have the fantastic folks from St. John Ambulance. We're co-sponsored with the conference organizers here, a canine therapy area. So I know our business is super stressful. It's kind of nice to just hang out with some therapy dogs, have some fun, take a picture, just enjoy yourselves. FYI, for those in their fancy duds, we have lint brushes and lint rollers at our booth. So if you need to go, we also have dog treats at our booth, so if you want to reward the canine companions. And if you want to learn more about the technology and how we're helping tens of thousands of Canadians, we got a great crew here talking about that today. I really appreciate your time. I hope I've created some value in talking about some ideas and the framework and some of the things that we're doing and we're seeing others do. Full disclosure, everything I've talked about can be done manually. There's a cost. Figure that out, but they should be done. And this works for banks, governments, private sector, higher ed, and more, so it can work for you. And if you're an organization that's convinced that you can't work with your people, come talk to me, because I probably can give you some other advice besides security. All right, I'll stop talking for a second. Are there any questions or comments? And I'm sorry I can't really see because the lights are kind of shining at me a little bit. But I'm happy to take any questions, or I will wrap up. Love to chat one-on-one. I appreciate your time, and go from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.